checking things off? I mean, or are you just using that as an analogy?
As an analogy, and also, do we care what they think? No. We are on a mission. And they're making their own lists about us, maybe in their head, and maybe not by buying a book about us. But they have a list. Is she pretty? Is she this? Is she that? So we can have our list as well.
And I asked the question when I was asking the audience to get involved with us, and that is, do the same rules apply for men who are looking for a spouse? Because, hey, admit it out there, it's not just the women who are looking to get hitched. There are many men who want to find Mrs. Right as well. Maybe it's the second Mrs. Right, but nonetheless, they're still looking for a partner. So do the same rules apply, or is it somewhat different?
No, I think it does, because they need to want somebody with the same values in the long run. They want a great, sexy, you know, wonderful girl that's going to last one night. That's not going to last either. I think that they should find somebody who is going to be a really good partner in a lot of ways. And our research says that opposites don't attract, even though that's the old adage that you think it does. It's really similarities, like look in the mirror. Someone who looks like you a little bit, someone who thinks like you, has the same goals, the same ideas on education, on children, on faith. These things are going to make a marriage last in the long run. And there is one little bit of information from UCLA that surprised us, or maybe not, that the man should be a tad uglier than you. Just a little, a notch. Not a lot.
This is factual consumer information. Research that was done.
Yes, by
that the
UCLA.
husband or the man or the partner should
a little bit.
Just be a...
Yeah, you should be the princess and always shine. Makes sense, Lynn.
I love the way they think.
Doesn't it?
Really, it sounds good to me. So where do we apply all of this? How do we find it?
All right, well, first of all, you need to know where to shop.
Right.
So go where the men are. They're at Home Depot. They're at the Apple computer store. Take a fly fishing course. Go to golf school. Don't go to the spas. Don't go to the tea cafes. You need to be where the men are. Also go online. I mean, I really think people work a lot. You know, they're busy with their lives. They're commuting. So you need to use the internet. There are a lot of guys out there that are presumably looking for what you're looking for. So if you're honest with your profile and they're honest, you know, we all know people who've met and married that way.
Now, I know that you have, over the years, looked at these internet sites very carefully. I've watched your reports. Have they been effective, or should we be somewhat wary of them? Because people, for me, I get very nervous because I think people are going to present themselves as, you know, one way, and then when I would get to know them, not that I'm looking, but that they would perhaps, you know, have some hidden secrets or a dark side. And I always get very nervous when I hear that people are looking online for matchmaking services. What's your experience tell you about that?
Well, I think you really need to use your gut, and you don't need to have a whole long conversation online. I think you need to get out there after a few times corresponding and meet them for coffee in a well-lit place. And then afterwards, if you kind of like the guy, you know, you live in a city, people know people who know people. So ask around. Someone's got to know his family, what school he went to, something, and go on Google and go do searches to see if he really is who he says he is, because it's different when someone introduces you to someone.
You know, that's
they
so
have
funny.
some history, and you know that.
We mentioned about the internet, and now you can do background checks as well. I mean, there's a good side to it as well. So Janice says how to shop for a husband. She gives us advice in this book, but she says that she applied these same rules. So I have to put you on the hot spot for a second, because this really worked for you.
It did. I shopped alone, and I found the guy, and then he told me he was an attorney, so I had my friends look him up on Martindale Hubbell, which was an attorney website, and he said he was who he was, so I knew that was kosher. And, you know, I proceeded after that. And then he also had an expiration date. We dated for 3 months, and, you know, I was older. And I said, you know, honey, I really like you, and I hope this is going to go somewhere. But if it's not, then, you know, we just need to say goodbye. And he looked at me like no one ever spoke to him that way. And he took off for 2 weeks. Didn't hear from him. I thought that was it. He came back and he said, you know, you might think I'm crazy, but let's give this a try. And 3 months later, we were engaged. So I say, don't waste your time, because no one can give you back the time that you've wasted. So if you know something's not going somewhere.
And does he know you wrote this book?
It's in the shopping cart, don't you say? Yeah, just kidding.
What a great success story. So now you're happily married, you have a couple of kids,
yeah,
and it all worked out for you.
Thank goodness it did.
Wow, that's great. See, if you take this advice, you could be happily married, have a couple of kids of your own, if that's what you want.
If that's what you want, right.
We're going to talk some more with Janice Lieberman in just a moment. We have to take a quick break, though. When we come back, we'll answer some more of your questions about how to shop for a husband, or perhaps a wife, Mr. or Mrs. Right, and we're going to talk about some of the consumer issues that she has followed for us over so many of the years. So stay with us. More on It's Your Call right after this.
Lynn Doyle's jewelry provided by David Craig Diamonds and Fine Jewelry, Newtown, Pennsylvania.
Transportation for It's Your Call guests provided by Preferred Car and Limousine.
Thanks so much for joining us once again. I'm Lynn Doyle, and my very special guest this half hour on It's Your Call is Janice Lieberman. I'm sure you recognize her face. You've seen her on the Today Show for many years. She has written a new book. It is her second, I believe. It's called How to Shop for a Husband, and it's actually quite tongue-in-cheek, but it has some great advice in there, too, if you are looking to be a good consumer. And, you know, it's funny, Janice, I don't know why people get offended by the fact that, you know, we want to be a good consumer. Certainly, a husband or a wife is the most important investment that you're going to make in your future. So why not follow the principles that you would for buying a car?
Oh, you spend more time on that than you even do dating, right?
Can you imagine? I mean,
hemming and hawing over a car.
Exactly. We don't apply great principles to finding the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with, but you read and shop and compare for a car or a refrigerator. I think we have our values mixed up there.
And a lot of people, you know, not a lot of people, but some people who have made bad choices say, I wish I would have thought about this or thought it out and really evaluated what was important to me at the time. And then, you know, I would have made a smarter decision. But luckily, we make good decisions.
So we do have to really look at ourselves as consumers in all aspects of our lives.
I think so. You know, whether it's finding a job, you have to make that into a business, finding a mate, finding a house. I mean, we're consumers all the time, and if we just use those principles to what we need at the time in our lives, it's going to work.
Well, we've given our viewers an opportunity to write in to us at TCN_IYC@cable.comcast.com. You can also find us on Facebook. Both Janice and I are there, so you can send your comments there. Or you might see our camera crews out and about around the region, giving you an opportunity to ask a curbside question. Let's go to our next one now for Janice.
Okay, so you say not to settle when you're shopping for a spouse, but you say you have to compromise. So what exactly is compromise?
Oh, there's $1 million question.
Yeah, exactly.
When you can answer that one, you're going to have the answer to all the world's questions.
Yeah. No, I mean, settle is a really negative, yucky word. I don't like it. You can be choosy, but you don't have to be crazy picky. And I think that you have to be realistic. I mean, there are certain, you know, I have friends who are 45 and say, I would date someone who's 30. Well, you know, that's not that reasonable if you're not Demi Moore. So let's be a little bit realistic. And also, I say in the book, you might need to repackage yourself. And that means from the outside, your hair, your clothing, maybe you're looking a little old or a little stodgy or too open or, you know, not sophisticated enough, whatever it is, have an outsider help you with that, but also to repackage yourself on the inside. And that may mean going to a therapist or going to your best friend or someone who's really in your corner and saying, what do I need to do? How am I coming off to men? Am I coming off desperate or angry or too available? And I think that's something that needs to be tweaked sometimes. I have a friend, and her husband read one of her friend's online profiles, and he said, you know what, Sherry, I would never go out with that girl. She's so angry.
Oh, no.
And I don't think you see how you come across sometimes. So going to a third party may help.
Now, one thing that you focus on quite often in your consumer reports is getting your money back, refunds, returning merchandise that's not quite right, and how you can start again.
Right.
So how do you do that when you're turning in a husband or a date?
Or a date. I mean, cut your losses early. If it's not a good item, return it fast. I mean, sometimes you make an impulse buy and it's not a good one. And you say, you know what, I really didn't need that dress. So that's going back to the store. So, you know, you need to stand back and say, I don't need to waste any more time or money if I don't have to. So trust your gut. And if it's not, also, you know, I believe in recycling. If it's not a great buy for you, you can give it to a friend, right? What's wrong with that?
You have a great sense of humor when it comes to